When witches gather with whiskey and weed, you'll never know where our topics may lead.
I know when you tuned into this episode of Witches, Whiskey, and Weed, you were expecting to see 3 different faces other than what you have right now. But we thought we'd switch it up a little bit, and the men of the Coven Dupps would...
Back by popular demand.
Right, do their own little episode. So I'm Grim Dupp.
I'm Synced Up.
I'm Danger Dupp.
And the reason that we're sitting here instead of the ladies this go around is because the conversation of masculinity within the witch or pagan traditions has been neglected. And we went on an episode of that a while ago. And now we're on to another question of, as men, what drew us or kept us in that path of, pagan witch, something alternative other than to the Christian that is so obviously dominated right now in the feminine?
Yeah.
It's a tough draw. Good question to ask. I was adopted at the age of 3 and raised by a predominantly Christian family, and did a whole lot of searching around within the Christian ranks trying to find my place, and never found it, and then fell in love with nature. Now, one of the things that I was taught through this Christian upbringing once upon a time was, someone told me, I never did any deeper research than listening to this person, but then in the ancient Hebrew texts, the Holy Spirit had a symbol written next to it that would suggest that the Holy Spirit was female. And so
Say that one more.
There is a symbol, supposedly in the ancient Hebrew text, there is a symbol following anytime they write the Holy Spirit, and it suggests that the Holy Spirit is feminine in nature.
So there's the term for Holy Spirit with the symbol for feminine attached to that. And that's
and I don't know if there's any true. I haven't researched that.
Mm-hmm.
Part of being a young Christian was that I blindly swallowed whatever was told me, and I didn't do very much research.
So that's what faith is, though. That's what faith.
That is. And
blind faith.
When I finally started feeling a more spiritual learning and following for myself as opposed to a blind faith, it felt very natural to recognize a sacred feminine, and it felt right to have that balance between, while the Christians are very strong God-fearing, the opposite is of the pagan, very much the goddess-fearing, or the goddess is in charge. And so it was easy to find that balance. Things felt comfortable to know that there was this sacred feminine that had been thought of well long before any of Christianity came along into things. And so I started exploring from there what the goddess culture was about, and just...
Well, what was your exposure, though, to that feminine knowledge that...
I came up here for my son's birth and was working for a construction company, and had met somebody who kept going to some gatherings and telling me about them, and eventually months later, I was invited to a Samhain gathering. And so it was my first exposure, and I was eagerly welcomed into that group of people. And we circled around for years and years and years together. And circles have changed, much as life does. Things have a rhythm, and things
Certainly.
come in and go away, and it's just life. But through that, I found something that I felt called to on a deeper
Just a
level.
second. I made that a little bit strong, so if you help me drink, it'll be half the strength, right?
Okay, that's right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
More power to you
I
guys.
like that. That's how I got called into a goddess faith.
Brother.
And it makes so much sense to have that balance. I like to think of the Mother Earth and all that energy around it, and we're the stewards. We are to take care of this land, to nurture it, to follow its cycles. This makes so much sense. I
Okay.
don't understand how I ever could have not taken that into consideration
But
for
when
the
you-
first half of my life.
When you first started circling, did you notice that it was mostly women that participated in that in that path?
Absolutely.
Did you feel outnumbered or less significant within?
I like to fill a duty. So immediately I felt purposeful, but eventually I felt, in some circles around some people, I felt as though I was never called to walk my own path, to be my own person. I was to follow and serve
A mold.
females.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And
okay.
it
Thought you
seemed
were talking-
unbalanced.
So in a lot of
That
ways,
we were always in servitude. There was a brief mention of the masculine energies during the summer and the
Mhm.
beginning of spring and until before fall kicked in, where like, hey, the sun, let's do a sun ceremony. But there was no call to us in our sacred masculinity within that, because it wasn't supposed to exist. Our sacred masculinity was to serve the goddess
Right.
specifically. And I felt like, there's an imbalance to that. And a lot of people had thought, but every time, as I mentioned last time, that I really tried to start a man group or circle, it's just running into that bump up.
yeah, define man.
Define man, yeah.
Yeah. I want to get Danger's viewpoint on this as well, but when you were in that position where you were starting to feel like servitude-ish in a way, would you say that's subservient to?
Correct.
Okay. Did you ever feel that you could point that out and say, let's fix this here within our own group? Or was it always follow the doctrine of the matriarch?
I felt that it was met in different variations. Some people were supportive of me, and other people were staunchly not supportive of me. And it really helped for me weed out the people who I could keep close, that maybe they didn't even necessarily agree with what I had to say or was thinking or was trying to formulate a strong feeling,
Mm-hmm.
insecurity about how I thought about certain things. They were still willing to love and appreciate me, knowing that we don't always have to agree on everything. And so, but yeah, it's amazing where if you go against the grain, how quickly shut down you can be.
Yeah. And has that been the case in all your circles?
No, not in all.
Okay.
Definitely in all groups, there have been people that have shut down. That's just another part of life. You can't please everyone all the time. So
yeah. Okay. Well, Danger, what drew you to a predominantly female followed path?
Well, it started in high school, really. Back in Arizona, Maricopa was a little town I went to high school in. When we drive through the reservation, I'd see this church, and I knew it wasn't the faith that they were raised with.
Mm-hmm.
Raised with.
Their culture didn't
Not
base on.
yes,
Okay.
not their original faith. It was forced on faith. And I thought to myself, if I could ever find that way they used to worship before the European faiths came and instilled their values and tyrannies over them, I would worship like that. And they worship nature, so I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
And it started with a Scott Cunningham trilogy book, Essential Oils, Herbs, and Brews, or something like that. It had 3 books in one. It
Right.
was a volume. I found it at a Bookman's, and that was all she wrote. I love books. I find it hard to read sometimes because my attention just does not hold. But with that book, I couldn't read it fast enough, like a fat kid eating cake, man. Give me that shit, you know.
When did you realize, though, that other people that followed that path were predominantly women? Not very many men also felt the same way that you were leading.
When I met my ex-girlfriend and best friend, Beverly.
Mm-hmm.
Or, yeah. So it changed my life for the better. Finding nature-oriented souls and just as screwed up as I was. I felt loved and welcome into the coven we had back in Arizona, though everyone moved their own ways. You know, life happens, but we, you know, we're here and, you know, coming together with you beautiful souls, man, is one of the best things that ever happened to us.
No, we're the ones that got enriched.
Well, anyways, it's when I met her that I realized, whoa, there's a lot of strong women up in here.
Were you intimidated or threatened by it, or did
No.
you just accept it?
No,
A lot of strong women up in here.
I think the word that comes to mind when I first met everybody at the neighborhood barbecue, where, you know, it was bomb food, so bomb. Anyways, our friend Eddie was talking about his pedicure that he just had, and he's beautiful gay man. You know, I love him. Hey Eddie, how you doing, brother? Love you. Well, when he was talking about, you know, his shiny toenails, I was like, what the
Shiny toenails.
When did men start getting...
I can see my reflection in there.
But he's one of the most beautiful souls. I know he's a great friend. Anyways, that was the most intimidated I've been, but not so much by the women other than fear. Just a little, if you want to stay healthy, just saying. But there has to be balance.
In respect.
It can't be all just intimidation. I think the strong women, I mean, they help us find strength, and not so much the testosterone colored points of having to be a certain way, you know, we can fucking cry, we can go off and be moody, pull our head out of our ass, and then come back to the people we love, because that's what life's about.
The strong women, the good strong women, will push us to feel our emotions and will hold us to be our higher selves and will love us regardless of what we're doing. And that love doesn't mean you're my wife or anything like that. Love can come as a sister, as a mother, as an uncle, or whatever variation you want to put on family, which is the people who have your back regardless of name and blood. in the end, really, truly, what family is the people that stick with you through everything.
And demand your best.
And demand your best. They're the
Yeah.
people who call you on your bullshit. And it's
Amen
good.
to that.
It's good to have, you know, a sacred feminine to push for that.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that we strive for as masculine.
But we get
is
a little-
to serve and protect at some point.
We get a little-
And it's good to be felt wanted in that role.
True. Though we do get our hackles up from time to time.
True. Oh,
Time to time.
Okay. Do you remember
Oh, Lord.
you said strong, confident women push us to be our best? Okay, that's
And
cool.
it's good to
Yeah.
feel wanted in ways that men enjoy feeling appreciated for. Protection,
Yes.
providing security.
But-
Like,
but
when we're
God
pushed
damn
to
it,
When our
do that.
when our masculinity is trusted.
Yes.
That's,
Yes. It's fulfilling to be
Yeah.
wanted in a manner that feels in a deep intuitive, like we're called to feel wanted in that manner.
Yeah.
And when that is
And that's-
appreciated,
And that's not ego.
no.
That's not ego
That's-
at all. It's just part of, I think, our base, who we are as men. And I don't think there's any getting around that. But we can't allow ourselves to say that makes us the dominant side.
No,
No.
truthfully, there is no dominant
No.
side.
Mm-mm.
We have to have balance. Without balance, it just turns into a cancer and just
Yeah.
fucks you.
Yeah, because I was talking
No.
to Level and Gussie yesterday, I think it was, about the whole concept of alpha male and what that all is. The notion behind that isn't really a valid notion.
right.
There's no such thing as an alpha male. It just,
Well,
as soon as
I
you
mean,
take an alpha
That's
male,
totally arguable through, well, science just observing around us. There are definitely alpha males within nature and the other animals that surround us, none of which I feel are any less intelligent. Just because we can't understand what they're saying doesn't mean that they're any less intelligent or sentient than us.
right? But what I'm saying is
But
the
in-
concept of an alpha male or an alpha female, by what we've been taught, isn't true. There isn't a man in charge or a woman in charge. It truly is a balance of what is best for
Yes.
the pack, the pride, the herd, the flock, the whatever.
And there are alpha females in nature, as well as
Yes.
within our society, who are
Yes.
definitely in charge of what they are doing.
Yes, all the packs or herds tend to be matriarchal,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I was trying to get around to.
That having that balance. So
Yeah.
yes, our notion of alpha male within the human societal
Right.
standards is invalid.
Right, exactly.
I think a lot of it is held as attacking and possessing and conquering, and I don't think that those
I
are
shall dominate
healthy.
you.
Are healthy ways of thinking
I have more
of being
chest
like
hair
a
than you.
successful male. I think that protecting and providing
You
are
probably
things that
do.
should be high on, and protecting family, you know, hopefully from a predator or something that threatens our livelihood and life, but not going out and picking fights. You know, it's how we
Yeah.
perceive
Let me okay.
alpha
but
traits in being a healthy balance of those of
you
what
say,
we have.
but you say not out picking fights, but to kind of throw a bug in that thought process is your clan, your village is low on supplies. It's not going to make it through winter, but the village over there, they got a lot. They will survive. If
I would have to say that no matter what I would like to idealize myself doing in that situation, in the end, I think humans are pushed to do great things. Sometimes they do things they are not very happy for in order to continue to live. Sometimes drawing that line of morality starts changing the more desperate things are. That's just human truth,
What do
man.
you
I know
think
some
about that,
really
David?
damn good people that talked a good game until they got put up in a corner, man. And their true colors showed, and nobody really knows their true colors until they're
I don't
stuck
even-
in the situation.
I can't even agree with true colors in that concept, because I know in my past, and I'm sure in yours and yours, you've been forced to make decisions just to survive that had nothing to do with your morality. It had everything to do with, Jesus, if I don't do this, some bad things gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
I know it ain't
But
exactly right, but
that does color your future choices, because just because you have to do something, or you know to survive, get by, that may not be ideal or to make your family proud kind of thing. You can learn from stuff like that, and heal and not be a dumbass and do the same shit over again.
What? No, okay, not make the immoral decision that you were forced to make, or not get yourself in a position where you have to make that kind of decision.
Well, yeah, to learn not to get in that
Okay.
position, and that applies in many aspects in life. You learn how not to, stick a hot, melty pen in your mouth after the first time. I did that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
My mom
Only takes once.
My mom was making beans, and I thought, hey, I'm gonna take this plastic pen and stick it in the fire. Ooh, I wonder what. I screamed.
That looks like taffy.
Mr. Stickin' plastic.
So
exactly what? No, I have to ask.
Okay.
This. What exactly possessed you to take the piece of plastic and melt it and place it in your mouth?
I don't know. Probably the same thing that possessed me to ride a broom right next to this old magazine / record player with brass pointy thingies on it, which impaled into my back, and my dad had to pop it out. Like, I could feel it. Never ride a broom next to next to sharp, pointy shit that you can fall off.
Thank you for that bit of advice.
Or if you do, wear a safety
Next
harness.
time I ride a broom, it'll be outdoors, nothing around me.
A Kevlar vest.
Kevlar
Harness.
vest.
Harness.
Harnessed, okay.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So, Grim, what's your story? What pulled you into this heavily feminine-dominated spiritual path of yours?
I've actually been dreading that coming around to me.
Dun, dun, dun.
I've been kind of hoping to stall the answer off for a while because I haven't been able to decide the truth to it, in all honesty. The morality behind my decision, the motivation, I guess. My introduction to it, to paganism on a whole, I guess, it was through a woman that lived in our neighborhood, much older than we were, and or as I was at the time. I was in my early teens, and she was in her late 30s, early 40s, somewhere in there. I wouldn't say that she was a witch, but she was definitely on a path other than the standard, whatever that means.
She didn't fit into a cookie cutter mold.
Well, no, but I can't really. They proclaimed, I say they because her coven was all women, and they proclaimed it to be druidic in stylings,
Okay.
but with a lot of thought processes that I know now to be very self-serving. So I can't really identify what path they were really on, other than to be served. That's the best way I can put it. When I started asking questions of our friend down the street who walked this particular path, started showing interest in what it is that she followed. I at the time didn't know that it was a predominantly female thing. It just, she happened to be a woman that did this, and but then I was slowly introduced to her coven, and that was all women. And I thought that it was a little different, but who am I to say? I was raised as members of my family, Mormons, some Jehovah's Witness, some Baptist minister. I myself was entertaining.
All 30 wonderful flavors.
Yeah. I myself was entertaining at one time. About that time in my life of maybe becoming a minister. When I started asking questions of her faith, and some of the things that she said that were counter to what I had been raised with in my various Christian-based understandings. They just didn't line up. They just, wait, that sounds very much like what's in the Bible. What are you doing? Taking this from the Bible and saying it's us? And it's the way I was educated that no, it's actually the other way around.
No doubt.
In many ways.
Correct. Yeah, the more I looked into this path as I became introduced to it, I was like, whoa. Whoa, this is the same story. There's just different names.
Yeah.
How can this be?
But on the other side of that, too, the way I was introduced to it was through a woman that inevitably, later on down the road, started using my services in ways that a young teen shouldn't be allowed to participate in. If I don't really need to go any further than that. But not just for her, but for her coven. I was a tool.
Nice.
Well, that's literally what it was, though. And you can imagine at the time, me being at the age I was, I know this isn't wrong, but this is so right.
Right.
But this is so wrong. And it did give me, in the end, more of a twisted or warped view on what pagan beliefs were. So when that started to drive, when that went away and I was more atheist and wasn't walking any particular path, I met a girl that was a witch. And then I was 17 or so years old, and well, to be honest, I wanted to get down her pants. How do you get down a witch's pants? You're a witch, and let's have sex.
In a circle.
Yeah. So to be honest, that was my first real exposure to that path anyway. It was an easy way to get laid, to be honest.
Yeah, but little did you know you'd be connecting with something so sacred and ancient, you know?
Yes. Yeah, and I am thankful for that original sin, I guess you could say, in that respect.
Yeah, sometimes sin's fun.
But it did, I'll honestly say that because of that, the initial exposure, when I started to truly look at this as a better, truly honest path for me to follow, the realization that it was predominantly women didn't really bother me. But then when I started getting more involved in covens of integrity that were at least were more integral than what my introduction was, I did start to realize that still in some ways we are just a tool. We're a prop in the ceremonies more than an equal in the ceremony. If that, and I allowed that to happen within the coven that I had first really started being in charge of, if you can call it that. We weren't using the high priestess mentality, but I allowed it to still be mostly matriarchal because I thought, well, that's just the way it is. I was one of only two guys within that coven, so. But I still feel that it was not balanced. It wasn't the right way to do it. There still needs to be that balance. So in this incarnation of my life, I really am so aware of a balance that is starting to strike. It really is. I'm surrounding myself with people that don't view it as a high woman in charge type situation, and men aren't the one in charge. It's just sort of the women tell me sometimes, hey, that was the guys tell me sometimes, hey, that was a little, and it isn't a dominance thing. It's we're all in it together to be better together.
We're all a team. We're like horses pulling
I was going to say we have to equally share the harness to pull all this weight.
Yes, that's so true. And it really warms my heart to see my youngest daughter our little mist, being raised not just by Gussie and I, but by the family on a whole, but with deference to where Gussie's and my morality are. If you get, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
You don't do anything or say anything to the help raising of her that we ourselves don't already naturally migrate to. And I see that in her, that ability to take what all of us have to say and digest it and learn from it. And that really makes me happy. So I think that as she grows older and if she walks this path, her future coven's going to naturally be just a balance. There isn't going to be a matriarchal side to it or a patriarchal
She's already
side.
observed
As it should
people
be.
trying to
Right.
find the center.
Right. And allow any path really spiritually to be accepted within a covenant. It doesn't have to be all of us doing the same thing, walking the same ideals in the same path.
Right.
Same God, same goddess, same ritual, same. We want that integration of moralities, of strengths and weaknesses to better us on a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And my children are going to benefit from that, I truly hope.
They will.
I hope that's a benefit anyway. I don't know. I'm not saying that the Dupp way is the best way.
No, it's the best way.
But
for
it's a way.
us.
It's a way, albeit experimentally first.
We're all learning. No one
We
has a
are.
blueprint to life.
No.
That'd be too easy.
Yeah, but this is,
Yeah.
albeit at times very confusing, I think the happiest I've really been, truly,
Cool.
in a long, if not ever. Well, I can't say ever, can I? Long term, more than just one moment in time, such as the
Yes,
birth of
here
a
we
child, happy.
Gotcha.
So, and that I really do appreciate.
This child isn't old enough to hate yet.
We haven't broke her. We'll have to try harder. You know, that's actually funny because Mist has this wit about her that sometimes makes me cringe, because she does have the ability to hit a nerve, strike that little oof. Gosh, that hurt when she quips back at you at times. I don't know if she's done that to you or.
She doesn't know me that personally
Okay.
yet.
Me neither.
But yeah,
Because when we
Mom
get
and
to
Dad, she's been around you her whole life.
Yeah.
She knows where your buttons are.
well, that's just it though, is because the banter that I always had with her from the get-go is we do kind of pick at each other.
Yeah, totally.
And I'm sure you've seen it, and it dawned on me that maybe if I reach a point where she's quipping back at me that I can't tell if she's being a turd or is this just our game, I did something wrong. I didn't show her the off switch or the balance switch somewhere. But on that end, I'm kind of proud of her for her quick mind, and I think that'll be important as she ages.
Now you got to teach her to appropriately question authority.
Yes.
You know that question authority thing?
Yeah.
How do you appropriately buck authority? I have a thought on that.
It's like power and finesse. You can have a lot of power, but that means nothing unless you can use it with finesse. You can't just
Okay.
smash through life. Sometimes you have to gently place things. And so...
Yeah, but who's in charge of placing it? Huh? No, yeah, I think you can't put it there. His idea is a little better, I think.
What idea?
But are you going to smash through or gently place? Sometimes you can't.
Wait.
You have to have one or the other. You have to be able to use your power with grace.
Yes, power with grace,
Well,
but if you're the
balance.
one that's molding a child's growth, obviously you're going to mold that child in what you think is the best way to raise that child.
That's absolutely right. And it's good for them to honor you and seek experience through your experience. They should be able to come and ask you questions and trust you. Trust that they're giving you their best. instead of always questioning and fighting. It's much better when there's an established trust.
Okay, but am I being of a disservice if Danger, I'm raising my daughter with my political views and my religious views, my morality?
Well, you're raising her the best way that, where your soul feels is the right path for you, but yet open-minded enough that if she chose to change to a different path, you'd love her nonetheless. Which, speaking, that brings a friend of mine, Eddie, to mind. He's
Hi,
Eddie. He's a very beautiful soul. He's a pagan Christian. He observes both faiths, and Well, anyways, he's a cool guy. God.
We're talking about raising my morality and my children. What makes my morality right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. When I think of like say if she chose to go the Christian faith, I mean, even though you would hope that she would follow, in your path, but you'd love her nonetheless. Kind of like Eddie's family and friends, the ones who are not assholes, probably, because every family has them. No disrespect. My bad. But love him for being who he is.
But I guess my confusion lies is we'll never really get to any kind of community on a global scale if each of us have a different set of rules at which we raise the next generation with.
I raised my 13-year-old son. I raised him. He's been to church. He's gone to other friends or spiritual events. He's done ceremony in pagan circle. We've traveled throughout the United States. We've dropped out into a Hopi reservation and attended some of their spiritual events that they had throughout the year, and made friends and connected with them and lived in the desert for a while. We've had some really, really cool experiences with people from all over, and I always told my son, I feel really drawn to earth spirituality. I was like, but I want you to know that there's so much out here, and you can choose whatever calls you the most.
Right. So,
that's
but do you think it's wrong for parents to?
It's not our choice, and if we take
force
away
a
that free
faith
will
upon them.
As a Christian, if you expect a person to lose that free will to choose their own spirituality and be introduced to it, then you're robbing them the very core of what God says is to be humankind. You have free will.
Right. Okay.